Minister, we support the extension of the EWIS and the CERS schemes. Are we dealing with all the amendments together, Lass?
Yes. Putting them individually.
Okay, but the debate is, because it's short
debate. The debate is as the clock tells you.
Yeah. Okay, so we support these for the obvious reasons, Minister, where the pandemic continues and the impact on particular sectors of the economy, the ones I think we should remind ourselves who have been hardest hit and most consistently hit from the beginning of this right through to now. So even when everybody's been affected by the pandemic in one shape or form, and it's been a pretty grim 2 years, let's be honest about it. But for some that has been psychological, it's been social, it's been to do with their kids and so on. But for others, it's been a repeated financial and economic hit, as well as that wider health piece and that psychological piece and that social piece. So it is absolutely right that we should maintain the supports in terms of the employment wage subsidy scheme, to maintain the relationship between employees and their employer, and the support schemes to ensure they can cover some of their ongoing costs. But it's not enough, Minister, if given that you're making last-ditch amendments which are correct for the businesses that benefit from these schemes, why is it that yet again the people who have been shortchanged throughout this entire pandemic, and who I have had repeated engagements with you, with the Minister for Social Protection, with the Minister for Public Expenditure, namely, primarily the self-employed, and what are, I think, called ancillary workers in terms of the CRSS, who are specifically excluded from the EWIS. So people are ancillary but impacted by the beneficiaries of the EWIS. But critically, tens and tens of thousands of self-employed people who are not getting the support they need, even though they have had to fight hardest and have benefited least from the supports that being available. Why is there not last-ditch efforts to ensure that they have support going into Christmas as well? And maybe this is not hasn't got through to the government, or maybe it's deliberate. And I made this appeal to Michael McGrath last night. I'm going to keep doing it until the last day of the dole to try and get some movement, or at least some answers and clarity, because there is confusion, anxiety, concern among thousands and thousands of people out there as to whether they're going to have any income, or what income they're going to have, or whether the income that they're being given is sufficient to support them because their work has collapsed as a result of COVID. And they do not benefit from these schemes. They had previously benefited from the PUP, some of them have benefited from the MEBAS, and I don't understand why, if you like, last-ditch moves or amendments in those things aren't being rushed through the dole this week as well. I just don't understand it. So in case you're not aware of this, Minister, as we speak, hundreds, if not thousands, of musicians, entertainers and taxi drivers and people to do with the nighttime economy are being refused PUP. We were told last week they would get PUP. They are being refused it. They're getting letters saying if you cannot show 4 weeks PRSRI contributions in the week before December the 7th, you're not eligible. Now, that is a ridiculous request for the self-employed, because they do their tax at the end of the year, right? So by definition, they're not getting any support, even though their work has collapsed. And then there's other people who are still on the PUP. As you remember, there's different cohorts because people were being phased off it from 350 down to 250, down to 205, and then forced onto job seekers. Now, if you'd signed off and then on the 7th or after go back on the PUP, you can get to 350, maybe, if they don't refuse it to you on the basis of this PRSI contribution thing, which they're refusing. But theoretically, you might be able to get it. But if you're someone who was on the lower rate because you were being phased down, you can't apply for the higher rate, even though the lower rate was phased down on the basis the amount of work you can do and the amount of income you can make was rising. Right? That was the whole principle. But all of those people have seen that additional income that they could earn because of the lifting of measures over the last while had just collapsed overnight. Right? So I'm getting desperate calls from drivers who are saying, you know, all the nighttime work is gone. They're waiting for 4 and 5 hours out at the airport. There's no fares. All the office workers are being told to stay at home, so all that work is gone. And possible further restrictions even at the end of this week, which could further impact on their work. Now, yes, there's some activity, shopping activity, and some people going to work around town, so you might think there's loads of work, but there isn't. Right? For the musicians, it's even worse. For the musicians, it's just gone. All of the gigs they expected to have in December. But what they're being told is, what they're being asked in for interviews, can you prove that you've lost income? Now, how do they prove that exactly? Do they have to get letters from all the people that they had arranged gigs for December and bring them into the intro office if they can get an appointment over the next week? And I'd say there's fat chance of that. Right, it's ridiculous stuff. Now, if you remember at the beginning, what did the government do? They said, we'll give the PUP to everybody because everybody's impacted, because the eligibility criteria for the PUP is my income has been significantly reduced or gone. My ability to earn is gone. Right? We didn't give people loads of hoops to jump through. But now what we're doing is we're refusing them or giving them multiple hoops to jump through which they cannot possibly jump through before Christmas. It is grossly unfair, and I repeat, these people who are facing this a week before Christmas are the people who've been repeatedly hit, and hardest hit, most often hit, and worst hit from the beginning of this pandemic. And yet again, they're being hit in the teeth of Christmas. So I am absolutely, on their behalf, appealing to you, Minister, to do something before Christmas, to just give anybody in these categories who self-evidently have been impacted by the latest round of health measures, and also this arbitrary date of when the measures were brought in on the 7th is ridiculous. Many people scaled back their social activities and outings last week. I know.
No, you can continue, but the time is...
I know, and I don't want to be fair to one of us. Yeah, but I just want to get this point across because it's my last chance, but I will. I just want to make this last point, is that the arbitrary date of the 7th is ridiculous. A lot of the work for the musicians collapsed the week before that or the week before that. So this arbitrary date, if from the 7th or afterwards, you're okay, but if anything before that doesn't count, right? If you applied or if you're on something. Right, so I'm just asking that the PUP will be given to these people who self-evidently have been hit or reduced, and that this PSRI contribution thing is just taken out of it because it doesn't apply to the self-employed, but that's what they are being told. And lastly, the MEBAS scheme for the musicians apparently won't be reviewed till January. Can we put some money in that scheme now, because the ongoing costs for that group, that cohort, are continuing even though there's no work for them?
More